Hey guys, welcome back. So far in our learning of controller specs, we covered specs for the get index section, post create action, and patch update action for our users controller. Now in this lecture, we will briefly cover rest of the action specs like destroy, new, show, and edit. Okay, so just switch to the project directory and let's start by writing the destroy action specs. Okay, so first go to the specs and user controller specs, and here you can see that we have written specs for the update, create, and index section. Now what we need to do, we need to do the specs for the destroy action. So just come to the bottom, okay, and describe the new block example group here, that is describe. And here first we will write the specs for destroy action. So destroy, sorry, delete, and then destroy. And now in this example group, just like our post and update action, we just need to define the before hooks and some users to get update. Okay, so first what we can do here, let's say, or you can just simply copy or paste from the previous example. So just copy this group, that is let user one, and before it's sign user, because we have added the before action authentication, so we will need this user to be signed in for any kind of operation of the user's controller. Okay, now what we need to do here, you can see that we define let user create user. So we will use this first user to get signed into the system, and then we will perform our destroy operation on this user one. Okay, so as the first specs, what we can do here, that we know that whenever we delete a record or a resource from our database, then the total count of the resource or the model records must be reduced by one if we destroy the one record or if we delete the one record. Okay, so first we will write a very simple example that it should reduce the user count by one when we destroy a user. Okay, so here what we can do, it should reduce the user count by one, user count by one. Okay, and then just implement this it block, and in this it block what we need to do, just like we did in the create and update action, that is delete, and then mention the action name here and what the action we have, that is destroy. Okay, and then just add the comma here, and now we need to pass the params here. So params, okay, and the params must be the id of the user that we want to delete. Okay, so we can pass here user one dot id. Okay, here you can see that we created this user one. So here you can see that we have two let user blocks here. That means for this delete describe block, we have total two users in our database. Okay, and when we delete this user, then user count must be one. Okay, so what we can do here now, and if you wish, along with this id parameter, you can define your request format as well. For example, now we checked html and turbostream request for our previous section. So if you wish, you can provide the request format here as well. So I'm providing the format, and then it must be turbostream. Okay, not must be, it should be. Or if you you can provide html format here as well, and you can skip this format block as well. Okay, and now what happened, once the request goes to the destroy action and the user will get deleted, so what our spec should expect, so it should expect then user dot count, user dot count dot to, and then eq one. Okay, and why one? Here you can see that for this delete or destroy describe block, we have two users created. One user we are using to get signed into the system, and the one other user we are using to delete from the database. Okay, so from total of two users, if we delete the user one, then it must set the user count to one. That means the user count will be reduced by one. Now if you wish, you can execute this spec on the terminal. So here you can see that we are at line number 229. So just switch to the terminal, and sorry, it's the browser. Switch to the terminal. Okay, and what we can do here, r spec then controllers, and then user controller spec, and then 229. Okay, and when you run this spec, you will see that your spec will get passed. Why? Because after deleting the user, our user count will be reduced by one. Okay, now here you can see that this is the browser, and let me make some space into the terminal screen where the server is running. Okay, now if you try to delete a user from the browser, then we need to see that what template is being rendered when sent as the turbostream request. But before deleting a user from the browser, first visit the users controller. So go to the app controllers, and here in the users controller you can see, sorry, the users controller, you can see in the users controller that at the destroy action we have three different request format. So with turbo stream format, what we are doing, that render turbo stream dot remove, and we are trying to get a DOM ID element, and then we are removing that element from the DOM, our HTML DOM or our web page. Okay, so what it means that with turbostream dot remove, we do not need to render any template. Okay, for example, here you can see that if I delete this user, let's say delete any random user from here, and when you delete this user, you can see that the user has been deleted. User row is not appearing into the users table anymore, and in the server you can verify that user has been deleted, and the destroy sorry the request to the users controller destroy action is coming as the turbo stream format. And here in the logs you can see that it does not rendering any partial or any template after deleting the user. That means when we use turbostream.remove, what it does, it will simply get the requested DOM element and then remove it from the DOM. For example, again switch to the user, the browser. Here you can see that if you inspect this element, you can see that this row has a ID, and the id is user underscore row underscore one, where one represents the id of the current user. Okay, and sorry, the requested user for that row. Okay, and here you can see what we did, user underscore row underscore user dot id. That means once it transform to the string, it will be user underscore row underscore whatever id we are passing into the users param. Okay, so that means if we send the destroy request as the turbo stream, then it should not render any template. Okay, so let's write example for that as well. So what we can do here, it should not render any template with turbo stream request. Okay, so it should not render any template with turbo stream format. Okay, then just simply do here, and in this it block, now what we need to do, we just need to use the same thing like delete destroy params id user1 dot id, and then we will expect that it should render the nil. Okay, so what we can do here, expect response dot to, and then render template, and pass the nil object here. Okay, that means it should not render anything. If you provide any name, then you will get an error or your spec will get fail. Okay, so here you can see that expect response dot to render template nil. Now if you run the spec at the line number 237, you will see that your spec will get passed. Okay, that means it does not render anything. So just replace the 229 by 237, and when you run this spec, you will see one example, zero failure. Okay, but here, if you provide a blank array, let's say for example this. Okay, so if you provide this blank array, then you will got an error. Okay, and here you can see that what error we will receive, that assert template only accept a string, symbol, hash, regular expression or nil. Okay, so if you provide, let's say this in blank string or an empty string, and if you run this spec now, then try to see what result you will get. Okay, and here you can see that expecting blank string but rendering with an empty bracket. It does not mean by this empty bracket that you are getting an empty array. Okay, it means that you are getting nil. Okay, so that's why you need to pass nil object here. So to get this spec pass again, just to set it as nil. Okay, and run this spec again. So now your spec will get passed. Okay, so whenever you have to make any testing, like you are trying to render a template but there is nothing you are getting rendered, then you must set as nil. Okay, here you can see into the console that one example, zero failure. Okay, now there is one more aspect that we can do in the users controller. You can see that if the request is coming as the HTML format, then what we are doing here, we are redirecting it to users index page. You can see that redirect to users URL. Okay, and notice user was successfully destroyed. Okay, so what we can do here, we can write another it block. Okay, and in this it block, what we need to do, we first need to skip the format of the request from the params. Okay, or we need to mention the format as html. Okay, if we are not setting any format into the request, that means the request is submitted as the html request. Okay, so let's write another it block here, that is it should redirect to, users index page after deleting a user. And then just add the do keyword here, and now what we need to do, just copy it. Okay, and here you can just use, let's say, okay, just remove this, because we do not need to mention the request format now, and replace this response by subject. And I already explained that what subject is. So the subject is used for the object that is being tested in any example. Okay, so now what we need to do here, next thing, that replace this render template by redirect to, and replace this nil by users path. Save this, and now if you run your spec at line number 245, you will see that this will also get passed. One example, zero failure. That means our spec for HTML request is also passed for the destroy action. Now we need to move to the specs for the show action. So what we can do here, let's say we can define another example group, that is describe, and here we can add, let's say, get, and then action name, that is show. Okay, and then do, and end it. And now just copy these users as well into the show describe block as well. So just copy this, because we need one user to get sign in and another user to visit the show page. Okay, and what we can do here, it should render the show template with partial. Okay, I mean that what partial is being rendered when we try to display a user detail, or when we try to hit the show action of the users controller. For example, you can see this on the users controller. For example, first close the inspect and refresh the page and switch to the terminal where your server is running. Okay, make some space here, and now try to visit a user. Okay, so if you click on the show action of this user, you can see that what template is being rendered at the logs, that users show.turbostream.js, and request is coming as the turbo stream. So what you need to do, you need to pass id of the user as the params and the request format as the param, that is turbo stream, and then it should render the user's show. Okay, and we will also expect the media type and content type of the request as well. Okay, so what we can do in our spec, that we can write a block, that is it should render the show template with partials. It should render the show template of user, and then do, and here just like delete and all other action, what we need to do, get, and then your action name, that is show. Okay, and here you need to set the params. So set the params here, and params must be like id of the user and the request format. So id should be user1.id. Okay, and then format, it must be turbo string. Now we need to expect something here, that is expect response.to render template. And what template it should render, that is show.turbostream.trv of the users directory. So users, and then show. Okay, and now we can expect the media type and content type of request as well. So we can use it from the create action. Okay, if you wish, you can just follow the create action here, like this: expect response dot media type and response dot content type. Okay, so just copy this, and we can use the same line into our show action spec. So just copy this, and now run the spec at line number 261 onto the terminal. Okay, so switch to the terminal where your specs are running, a 261 line number here, and you will see that this spec will get passed as well. Okay, so one example, zero failures. Okay, now we need to do the similar thing for edit and new action as well. So let's quickly do that. Okay, or let's do that quickly. Just copy this, describe, get, show, and here we will do the thing for, let's say, edit action. So replace this show by edit. Okay, and then also this users show to users edit. Okay, use this, and now send the sorry, now execute this spec at the line number 280. Okay, so just switch to the terminal and execute 280. Okay, and then similarly we need to do the same thing for get new as well. Okay, so if you wish, you can see in the terminal that your spec is also get passed. Now do the same thing for describe, get new. Okay, so also just replace all this show by new. Okay, and then switch to the terminal again and execute the spec at line number 299. So switch to the terminal, users controller spec 299, and you will see that your spec for the new action is also passed. So one example, zero failures. Now if you wish, you can execute all the specs for the users controller, and you will see 20 plus examples and zero failures. I'm not sure how many just. Okay, so total of 23 examples and zero failures. That means our controller speaks for all resource action only. Okay, not for all the action. All resource action only has been done. Okay, here you can see in the users controller that we, what we are calling as the resource action, that is the def index, show, new, edit, create, update, and destroy. So all resource section controller specs has been done, and now here you can see that we have this fetch country state action as the custom action or as the collection method. Okay, that is not the resource section. So if you wish, you can write specs for this as well. Else I will continue with the specs of the custom action in the next lecture, and then we will move to the request specs. Okay, so let's try this lecture at your end, and we will meet into another lecture. Till then, tata, goodbye, take care, and stay safe.